Hey, this is Portia Sabin, president of the Music Business Association. I'm looking forward to seeing you in Atlanta, Georgia, May 11th through 14th for the annual Music Biz Conference. Right now, you're listening to the Your Morning Coffee podcast with my friends Jay Gilbert and Mike Etchert. Weekly music news for the new music business.
From John Blistein at Rolling Stone, everything to know about the Live Nation verdict, what it means for fans, and what's next.
From Murray Stassen at Music Business Worldwide, Universal's Michael Nash takes aim at false narrative of artist replacement by AI, saying if you don't claim a seat at the dinner table, you're likely to wind up on the menu.
From Pete Madigan on Substack, someone used AI to steal a song. The original artist found out by accident. The platform still hasn't removed it.
And from Joel Gavia from his Substack, a love letter to the music industry in 2026. All of this, plus our friend Terry Courier sets the record straight on Music Millennium canceling an in-store listening party after AI backlash. Oh boy, we got a lot to cover. We're glad you're here. It's episode 298, and we're going to start the show right about now.
Stand by for transmission.
This is London calling.
Wake up! The revolution is at hand!
Your morning coffee is on the air. 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 Standing by. Your morning coffee, the weekly music news for the new music business. It's the highly curated, agitated, advocated, moderated, and liberated digital music information that you need to know. We are your digital music authority. And now from our studios in Hollywood, California, here's your hosts, Jay Gilbert and Mike Etchert.
Good to see you, Jay. It's been a morning, man. It has been a morning. Ghosts in the machine sometimes.
It sure has, but we've hopefully got it figured out now. But that's the nature of the beast, right?
It is indeed.
Well, we want to thank Portia Sabin from the Music Business Association for that cool intro. I'm really looking forward to attending the Music Biz Conference. That's May 11th through the 14th at the Renaissance Atlanta Waverly Hotel. It's one of the best conferences out there, and I always look forward to it.
Yes, I'm sorry I can't go and join you there, but I'm sure it's going to be a great time.
Maybe next year when they're in San Diego, you can make the trip down the coast.
My old stomping grounds. I would love that. Well, by the way, that was music by Angine de Poitin, and that is Sarnese. Check out the Rick Beato video in the Your Morning Coffee newsletter this week. Really, really interesting stuff. It is
really interesting, and Rick says that this is the most email he's received on any video that he's done. And if you don't follow Rick Beato, it's Beato. You really should. It's Mike and I love this guy and his channel, and we never miss an episode. And this one's a really interesting about this artist. It's a duo, and they call it math rock.
Yeah, and I've heard that phrase we talked about a little bit before we hit record. A friend of mine has used that phrase before, and I always ask him, and what is math rock? Well, you'll learn a little bit more about it if you check out the video.
It doesn't sound like something that's a lot of fun, because math to a lot of people isn't a lot of fun. But these guys, the way they dress and the way that they use loops, it's really cool. I just got back last night, as you know, from Ohio University, that music industry summit that Josh Antonuccio puts on every year. It's so good. Did a mentoring session, and I interviewed the manager of the band Camp, that's CAAMP, and his name is Adam Sensenbrenner. And we had a great conversation. We did some breakout sessions about where the music industry is going, but fantastic event. Well done, Josh. And one other thing, last week, I did this panel at Cal State Northridge with some really smart people. They had a music industry careers summit, and it was fantastic. And we had a panel on the future of music, and that was with CSUN professor Seven Bailey, Candace Newman, Joe Poindexter. It was really a fun time. And just really quickly, actually, you want to edit that one? That's you go next, not me.
Yep. By the way, of course, there's a Your Morning Coffee. And there's a Your Morning Coffee special episode. It's a conversation with Juana Ruxandra. Really interesting one you guys did, and do check it out. It's posted right now.
Yeah, that's live. And, as we said, Juana is really a force of nature. And we sit down for an amazing conversation about the parallels between artist brands and tech startups. And there's a lot of them, believe it or not. What makes a creator and what she's building at her company, Pop Hatch.
Yeah, she spent 20 years turning massive disruptions into business victories. At Warner Music Group, as Chief Digital Officer, she led a 200-person global team that increased digital revenue by $2 billion while negotiating first-of-their-kind deals with Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon, and Meta.
Yeah, any companies we've heard of?
Nope.
Yeah, you don't miss that episode. There was a really interesting piece I found on LinkedIn by Pete Madigan, and we've read some of his things in the past, really thoughtful. The headline grabbed me. It said, someone used AI to steal a song. So they did that. They distributed it legally. They sold it on Apple Music, and the original artist found it by accident, but the platform still hasn't removed it. And I guess this is the music industry in 2026. So Connie and Fusion wrote the track together in their home, 2 artists, 1 song, made properly. Someone took it, fed the vocal anyway, into AI, and they built a different version of the song and they uploaded it.
Yeah, so a distributor let it through. Apple Music listed it for sale. Nobody asked for permission. A fan recognized Connie's voice in a track she never made and sent it to Fusion. Management stepped in, got it taken down. Apple Music kept it live. The person who stole it apologized faster than Apple Music acted.
Yeah, Connie said it in the clip we're about to play for you. AI is getting out of hand. Anyone can take your voice, run it through software, upload it, sell it. Nothing in the system will stop them, she said. Not quickly, not automatically, maybe not at all.
Well, Connie and Fusion did everything right. The system failed them anyway. In this clip, Fusion plays both versions back to back. You'll hear what the system allowed. So is this Apple Music's fault, the distributors, or the person who built the tool?
Yeah, listen to this.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but someone stole my song and released it as their own song and promoted the song as if it was completely their own song, as if they hadn't just generated it on AI. I'm angry at this person that stole the song, but you know who I'm the most angry at? The music industry, because I'm sorry, why are you not checking? Of course there's going to be people that are going to think that it's okay to use AI to make songs and call themselves a musician and think they can get away with it. I don't want to compete against AI. If you're watching this video, you are someone who uses AI to make music. You're literally ruining it for us. I just feel like it has to stop now. It's getting ridiculous.
Oh my God.
So this is the music industry in 2026. And before we dive into the big stories this week, let's thank our sponsors.
Yes, let's do so. Support for the show comes from our friends over at Hypebot. Since 2004, Hypebot has chronicled the new music industry and the trends and technologies that are changing how music is discovered, consumed, marketed, and monetized. Founded by Bruce Houghton, Hypebot is edited by touring artist and publisher Jeremy Young and supported by live music discovery and marketing platform Bands in Town.
Yeah, we love Bands in Town. Now over 100 million live music fans trust Bands in Town to get personalized concert alerts, recommendations, and messages from their favorite artists. It's the #1 artist services platform, and it connects over 700,000 artists with their super fans. Managers, labels, agencies, and artists access their own dashboard to manage and promote their tour dates to music fans across all platforms. And Apple Music now has concert listings via Bands in Town.
Sure do. Hey, by the way, every week I get to hang out with this guy right here, my good friend Jay Gilbert, music business consultant, educator, curator of the weekly Your Morning Coffee newsletter, and a former executive with Universal Music, Sony Music, and the Warner Music Group.
Yes, sir. And every week I get to do this with my good friend Mike Etchart, longtime host of Sound and Vision Radio, formerly of SST Records, Warner Music, Capital EMI, and Universal Music Group. And so, we typically hop on and chat for at least an hour like we did this morning about everything that's going on, because this music industry is changing fast, and it's really nutty trying to keep up with everything.
Oh, it's absolutely. And that's my favorite part of the week, by the way. Well, let's jump into the stories, Jay. The first one's from John Blistine over at Rolling Stone. Everything to know about the Live Nation verdict, what it means for fans, and what's next. So big changes could be coming to the concert and live entertainment industry. On this last Wednesday, a jury found Live Nation and Ticketmaster liable for operating as a monopoly, marking one of the most significant antitrust decisions in recent memory.
Yeah, originally sued by the Department of Justice in 2024, with nearly 40 states plus Washington, D.C. signing on as co-plaintiffs at the time. Live Nation was accused of exerting outsized influence over the live entertainment industry thanks to dominant positions in ticketing, promotions, and venues. For instance, the jury heard testimony that Live Nation threatened to withhold lucrative concerts from large venues that did not sign exclusive deals with Ticketmaster, and that artists who wanted to play Live Nation-owned amphitheaters also had to use the company as a promoter.
Lawyers for Live Nation countered that the company had succeeded on its own merits. Live Nation's multi-pronged business model, they claimed, was no different from that of its competitors, and its success was predicated on the offering the best quality product and services to artists, fans, and venue owners.
Yeah, the jury ultimately ruled against Live Nation, but how exactly this decision will affect the real world remains unclear. The judge overseeing the case still needs to decide remedies, and Live Nation has confirmed it will appeal. Still, a landmark decision is a landmark decision. So here's a complete guide to everything that happened and what comes next.
So you may be asking, just how big a win was this? Well, enormous. The jury decided overwhelmingly against Live Nation, with a check mark sitting next to every yes box on the 10-page verdict form. As Jeffrey Kessler, the lawyer who took over the case as lead counsel after the DOJ settled mid-trial, told Rolling Stone, there are lots of ways we could have had less than a total victory, but this was a total victory.
So what exactly were Live Nation and Ticketmaster found liable for? The main charges essentially boiled down to whether or not Live Nation and Ticketmaster had monopoly power over various facets of the industry, like the primary ticketing market, major concert venues, or the large amphitheater market. The jury also affirmed that the state's tying claim, where they alleged that Live Nation unlawfully tied artist promotion services to the use of its amphitheaters.
The jury further found that Live Nation engaged in unlawful conduct that harmed competition in each of the 33 co-plaintiff states plus D.C., and that the company violated a handful of states' individual antitrust or fair business practice laws. That's pretty heavy, though, right? What's the punishment? Well, that has yet to be decided, and we won't know anytime soon. Judge Aaron Subramanian will determine remedies at a second set of proceedings, but it's unclear when those will take place. As Kessler explained, the states will spend the next few months working together and with experts to figure, what does the verdict mean for that DOJ settlement from a few weeks back?
Right. That proposed deal, which 6 of the original co-plaintiff states signed on to, still needs approval from Judge Subramanian. He's set to review the settlement and make sure it was made in the public interest under a law known as the Tooney Act. As Kessler noted, Subramanian has asked that the states, Live Nation, and the DOJ get together to propose a schedule that incorporates both remedies hearings and the Tooney Act review, since those issues are related to each other.
Broadly speaking, the states could ask for any number of remedies, including breaking up Live Nation and Ticketmaster or forcing Live Nation to divest from other assets, such as some of its venues. There will also likely be significant monetary damages.
Significant monetary damages. Well, how significant? One thing the jury was asked to decide was whether Ticketmaster used its alleged monopoly power to overcharge fans for tickets. They said yes, and agreed that the assessment that the average overcharge came to $1.72 per ticket. That figure will serve as Subramanian's basis for determining damages. Obviously, $1.72, that isn't much in and of itself, but multiplied over potentially millions of tickets across more than 30 states, that number could easily reach hundreds of millions of dollars, if not more. Yeah, but many argue that the deal didn't go far enough, including the state attorneys general, who continued the case, politicians, Live Nation, and Ticketmaster competitors, and the industry trade groups like the National Independent Venue Association, that's NIVA. Speaking with Rolling Stone after the settlement was announced, Senator Amy Klobuchar said every time a Justice Department or an administration has done something like this, the company has gotten around it and grown even bigger. The only way to see a future for competition in ticketing, venues, and promotion would be breaking them up.
Right. But didn't Klobuchar and a few other senators just ask the judge to look into the settlement? Well, yes. The night before the verdict was announced, Democratic Senators Klobuchar, Elizabeth Warren, Cory Booker, Richard Blumenthal, Mazie Hirono, and Peter Welch asked Subramanian to closely scrutinize the deal. They cited recent reports that suggested the settlement was negotiated under suspicious circumstances and may have been agreed to in response to political pressure rather than the public interest.
Suspicious circumstances? Political pressure? That sounds spicy. The Live Nation case has taken on a significant political dimension, especially as the company lobbied the Trump administration over the suit. Most notably, the company retained MAGA-influenced lawyer Mike Davis, who also helped lobby the DOJ to drop its challenge to a $14 billion merger involving Hewlett-Packard and Juniper Networks. According to a recent Wall Street Journal story, Trump himself intervened. After hearing about the case from prominent people, the president reportedly asked what was holding it up. One was eventually reached after a meeting at the White House reportedly attended by Live Nation CEO Michael Rapino, the company's lawyers, and DOJ officials, including former Attorney General Pam Bondi.
Subramanian seemed primed to look into the settlement even before the senators submitted their letter. The judge was one of several parties, including some of the DOJ's own trial lawyers, completely surprised by the deal. The terms were reportedly agreed to on March 5th, but the court wasn't told until March 9th, a timeline Subramanian called unacceptable. A few days later, he issued a standard but nevertheless pointed order calling for all relevant communications pertaining to the settlement to be retained.
So what's Live Nation's next move? Well, they confirmed their plan to appeal, meaning the case could continue for several years. They're also hoping to win a few post-trial motions that could tweak the nature of the verdict. In a statement issued Wednesday, the company described the jury's verdict as, quote, not the last word, end quote, noting that there are pending motions to determine whether the liability and damages rulings stand.
Right. So here's a statement from Live Nation Entertainment. The jury's verdict is not the last word on this matter. Pending motions will determine whether the liability and damages rulings stand. Live Nation will soon renew its motion for judgment as a matter of law, which the court deferred until after the jury returned its verdict. That motion addresses all liability theories. The court previously noted that Live Nation's motion raises serious issues.
Right. It goes on to say that there's a pending motion to strike the damages testimony on which the jury's award was based. The court deferred ruling on that motion as well, while noting significant concerns with the damages experts' analysis. Of course, Live Nation can and will appeal any unfavorable rulings on these motions.
So the jury's award of $1.72 per ticket applies to a limited number of tickets, those sold at 257 venues, which represent about 20% of total tickets, and only to purchases by fans, excluding brokers, in certain states over the past 5 years. Based on that scope, we believe the aggregate single damages figure would be below $150 million, which would be trebled. In connection with the DOJ settlement, Live Nation has already accrued $280 million towards state damages and civil penalty claims.
Yeah, and finally, injunctive relief will be determined by the court after the states make a remedy proposal, which we expect in the coming weeks. In the meantime, the Toonie Act proceedings regarding the DOJ settlement, those will continue. We remain confident that the ultimate outcome of the state's case will not be materially different than what is envisioned by the DOJ settlement.
Wow.
We will keep up on this. It is a landmark decision, claiming that they are a monopoly, and we wanted to give both sides a chance to weigh in. As we sort of move forward here to our next story, this was really interesting because it involved a dear friend of mine, Terry Courier from Music Millennium, which is one of the best record stores on the planet, based in Portland, Oregon. And there was a piece that we saw by Rachel Saslow that was in Willamette Week. And the headline was, Music Millennium cancels listening party after AI backlash. So they claim that Music Millennium canceled this listening party at the last minute after an uproar on social media spurred by the fact that the music was created with AI.
Right. So Brandon Carmody is a longtime Portland musician, was set to have a CD release party at the East Burnside Street record store this last Monday, April 13th, for his new album, AI. That's the name of the album. Mm-hmm. Carmody wrote partial lyrics and melodies, which an AI software expanded into full songs. Musical prompt that Carmody says he gave the software epic 70s disco band heavy guitars. All the vocals are AI generated.
Okay, so what happened next was an uproar on social media in response to Music Millennium's posts announcing the show, railing against the use of AI in music. Commenters wrote that they were disappointed in the store, gave the event a thumbs down, and said it was hypocritical for a vaunted independent record store to promote robot-created music. So I reached out to Music Millennium owner Terry Courier this week to set the record straight. Here's what he told me.
So Terry said, about 10 days earlier, I had 2 employees, both musicians, questioning why we were doing an AI artist listening party. Brandon Carmody had played in the store live before and had asked to do a listening party, so I said yes. I knew him as a musician that was a good player. I didn't realize his album was done with AI. Then again, there are a lot of albums where the artist uses AI. How would this sound with strings? I wrote the song and I'm in my studio, but what would it sound like with a band?
Right. Terry goes on to write that some people were up in arms when synthesizers came out, drum machines were introduced, auto-tune was born. I gave an interview to The Weekly yesterday, and they recorded me, had AI transpose it, and then they look for errors. AI has filtrated into all of our lives, whether we like it or not. The promotion for the band Geese used AI and was able to quadruple the reach of the people out on the socials.
Yeah, he said last weekend, some people took to the internet and were encouraging people to come to our store with protest signs before the listening party. The sentiment seemed strong enough that it could incite confrontation. I chose to cancel it to avoid that issue.
Right. And Terry says AI is here to stay. We can't control how it's used. Napster did the same. People can fight it, like a lot of people did. It changed the industry. People lost jobs, and it changed people's listening habits and the way they consume music. Once the genie is out of the bottle, it's impossible to rebottle it.
He said, been an interesting couple of days as media were calling about Record Store Day, but ended up wanting to talk about the AI situation first. Terry says, take care. See you at Music Biz.
Thank you, Terry Courier, one of my favorite humans on the planet. I've known Terry since I was a teenager. Our next story, this is super interesting. This is from Murray Stassen at Music Business Worldwide. The headline is Universal's Michael Nash takes aim at false narrative of artist replacement by AI. He says if you don't claim a seat at the dinner table, you're likely to wind up on the menu. Universal Music Group's EVP and Chief Digital Officer Michael Nash appeared alongside Splice CEO Kukul Srivastava at the HumanX AI conference in San Francisco last week.
Yeah, the pair discussed UMG's approach to AI and the recently announced partnership between UMG and Splice in a wide-ranging conversation moderated by our friend Trapital's Dan Runcie. Asked how UMG balances protecting artists' rights with leaning into AI innovation, Nash described the company's approach as defense into offense.
Yeah, he also said, we have an obligation and a responsibility to defend the rights of our artists, but that's also the key component of organizing a marketplace for ethical entrepreneurs to develop new tools and new experiences working with the artist community. As we're fond of saying, if you don't claim a seat at the dinner table, you're likely to wind up on the menu.
Well, Nash pointed to UMG's growing list of AI partnerships, which now spans companies including BandLab, Clay, Udio, Stability AI, YouTube, and NVIDIA alongside Splice. One notable absent from that list, Suno, which has so far only signed a licensing deal with Warner Music Group. The AI music generator's licensing talks with UMG and Sony were recently reported to be in limbo with no path forward.
Okay, so this is what Murray writes. Here are three things you might have missed from their conversation. Number one, Nash called the AI versus artist argument a false narrative built on deeply flawed investment thesis. Nash took aim at what he called the false narrative of artist replacement. That narrative, he said, had its origin in deeply flawed investment thesis that AI eliminates music content supply constraints, kills the legacy model, and jailbreaks the music economy.
Nash argued the premise was wrong from the start. He said the digital transition had already effectively eliminated barriers to entry with 100,000 tracks uploaded a day 4 years ago, he said, applying what he called cocktail napkin math. Nash said, in order to listen to all music ever created, you'd have to live 1,700 years and never sleep. And then you'd have to live 17,000 more years for every year that AI models are cranking out new music.
He says that a nuclear explosion in production volume of content through AI doesn't have a market. There's no audience for that. It's not addressing any kind of need. Instead, Nash argued the real framing is artist times AI. AI has an opportunity to be a huge force multiplier. Instead of thinking about going from 1,700 years of content to 17,000 years worth of content and seeing an order of magnitude explosion in irrelevant content volume, we're looking at it as an order of magnitude advancement in creative potential for artists engaging with the technology.
Well, question number 2, Nash asked, would Bob Dylan's music be better if his vocals were perfect? When the conversation turned to what it means for AI music tools to get better, Nash offered a pointed response. He said, would Bob Dylan's music be better if his vocals were perfect? You could go through a laundry list and apply that question for Neil Young or Leonard Cohen or Johnny Cash or Kurt Cobain or Courtney Burnett or Lana Del Rey or Billie Eilish or basically any punk rock record.
Right. Nash also referenced the poet Robert Creeley, paraphrasing him as saying that art is a triumph of content over form. He also cited Bono's observation that we sang before we spoke, pointing to academic research suggesting music preceded language. I think that from a mechanistic point of view, that's the only way you would arrive at the conclusion that, yes, you're going to see better music. Ultimately, it relies on the artist and the creative process for their artistic intent.
Srivastava agreed, adding that the music creation tools available today are still far from where they need to be. He said, we do not have the right creator tools yet in market that truly allow musicians to tell their stories well, at least in the AI space. We don't have them, she said.
Yeah, Nash predicted significant growth in the music economy from AI, while Srivastava said, we'll stop talking about whether music was made with AI or not. Asked where AI in music will be in 5 years, Nash compared the current moment to previous technological shifts.
Yep. Nash said, if you consider what the electronic revolution meant a century ago, and you consider what the digital transition meant at the beginning of this century, 25 years ago, I think that AI is going to represent a paradigmatic change or a paradigmatic transition in the arts and in music, he said.
Yeah, he goes on to say that 5 years from now, I think you're going to see the beginning of a transition where artists are going to populate intelligent ecosystems with incredible, navigable, hyper-personalized experiences for consumers. You're going to see a significant amplification of creativity in music, and you're going to see a significant growth in the music economy as a result. Shrivastava struck a similar note, arguing that regardless of how quickly technology improves, what matters won't change.
Right. Well, her 5-year prediction was that AI will simply become invisible. She said, we won't really be talking about whether this music was made with AI or not. It just will be how it's done. Just like we don't talk about, is this electricity powering these lights? You can take it for granted, and I think that's what's going to happen with AI and music as well.
I think they're absolutely right. I think everybody's up in arms right now, but as these tools, get used to create music, and it's a human doing it, I think it's going to be less of a shock to the system as we move forward. So our final story this week, this was super interesting. A bunch of people sent me this, but we've followed Joel Gouvier for a while. And we've reported on some of the things that he's written in the past. But I love the headline. It says, "A Love Letter to the Music Industry." So this is our final story this week. I'll start by saying this, he writes, "A lot of my Substack has been built on the wreckage of the music industry. Most of you found me through an article called The Death of Spotify. The doom and gloom of the business is easy to point out, and it's always been there."
Joel says, but it seems like the one thing nobody in the space wants to admit is that optimism might be the most contrarian take left. Everyone is competing to have the hottest critique, the sharpest indictment. Negativity is the safe bet. It's what travels. So saying the opposite feels worth doing.
All right, so here's his love letter. You ready? "Dear music industry, I know what I've said about you. I've called you broken. I've written your obituary. I built a meaningful chunk of this audience telling people about your worst qualities, the exploitation, the monopolies, the algorithms, the contracts designed to keep artists poor. Some of it needed to be said. Most of it was true."
He says, but lately I've been thinking about my parents. They grew up in the 70s. If they wanted to hear a song, they waited for the radio. If they loved an album, they saved up for it and walked to a store. If something beautiful was happening musically in Lagos or Tokyo, they simply never knew. Music was rationed, and discovery was luck. The idea that an artist could record something in their bedroom and have it heard around the world by morning, it wasn't even a dream yet.
And here we are. Yes, the contracts have been predatory. Yes, the monopolies are real. Yes, the algorithms can feel like a cage, but somewhere along the way, something extraordinary happened. And I don't think we stopped to feel it enough. We don't have to find new music anymore. We get to. We don't have to build a fan base through a label anymore. We get to. We don't have to hope a radio programmer likes our song. We get to go direct.
Right. He says that shift from have to get to is what this letter is about, because underneath all of it, you are something genuinely extraordinary. And I think someone needs to say so out loud. You made music borderless. We used to need a U.S. label deal to reach a U.S. audience. We used to need a radio programmer in a city we'd never visited to decide whether our music was worth hearing. Geography was destiny. The map determined the ceiling. But now the algorithm doesn't care about your passport.
Right. Joel goes on to write that look at the explosion of Afro beats, K-pop, and reggaeton. Sounds that 20 years ago would have spent their entire lives as local phenomena, never crossing the borders that once contained them. Today, if the music moves people, the technology finds the audience. A producer in Lagos doesn't have to wait for Western validation. They get to build a global fan base from their living room. A kid in rural Manitoba doesn't have to hope their local record store stocks something interesting. They get to access the entire history of recorded music before lunch.
He says, we spent decades romanticizing the era of record stores and word-of-mouth discovery. But in reality, it was a system that locked out most of the world. The current one doesn't. Every independent artist on the planet now has access to the same distribution infrastructure as Universal Music. He says, you blew the doors off the classroom. We used to have to know someone. The knowledge was hoarded. The access was rationed. And music education was an apprenticeship system that disguised itself as meritocracy, when really it was just gatekeeping in a vintage jacket.
He goes on to write that now we get to learn everything. Professional level engineering, music theory, production, marketing, publishing law, available on YouTube and masterclass for less than a Netflix subscription. I mean, AI pushed this further. The barrier to starting has never been lower. And what the doom narrative gets wrong is this: more people making music is not a dilution of the art form. It is the art form getting bigger. It is the pool of human creativity expanding in real time. And that's a beautiful thing.
He says, you made the songwriter the most valuable person in the room. Songwriters used to have to fight for a seat at the table. They get to own the table now. As AI-generated content multiplies, the underlying composition becomes the only asset with legally enforceable value. Every AI-generated cover, remix, interpolation, or alternative take requires a license to the original song. The songwriter who owns their publishing on a great melody is sitting on something that just got dramatically more valuable.
Right. We're entering a period where the volume of content derived from existing composition will increase by orders of magnitude. And every single one of those derivatives is a royalty event for the rights holder. Publishers, songwriters, and producers who own their own masters and they're publishing outright are about to get very, very rich. A composition renaissance is coming. The people positioned for it are the ones who actually wrote the songs.
Right. He says, you made imperfection the point. He said, we used to have to spend $50,000 on a music video to be taken seriously. The barrier to credibility was expensive and deliberate, designed to keep the industry small and the gatekeepers powerful. He says, then AI made polished content too easy. When a cinematic, perfectly color-graded video can be generated for almost nothing, it stops being a signal of artistry. It becomes noise.
Right. And audiences recalibrated faster than anyone predicted. What we're craving now is the unfiltered thing. The artists in their bedroom, bad lighting, microphone slightly off axis, nothing between them and you. And finally, we don't have to perform perfection anymore. We get to be real. You made human-made mean something again. Walk into a grocery store and look at how much the organic label commands over the conventional option beside it. Nobody orchestrated that shift. It emerged from a collective anxiety about what was real and what was genetically engineered.
He says the same movement is coming for music. Audiences are beginning to ask, quietly now, but loudly soon, whether what they're listening to was made by a person who felt something or assembled by a system optimizing for a feeling. That question is going to become a purchasing decision. The made by a human stamp will carry within the decade the same cultural weight that a handmade tag carries on a piece of clothing.
Artists used to have to compete with major label budgets and manufactured pop machines. They get to compete on humanity now, and that is a fight no algorithm can win. Also, you made catalogs immortal. Music used to expire. If your album wasn't in the new release bin, it was effectively dead. The industry was built on the assumption that music was a perishable good. DSPs ended that permanently.
He says Fleetwood Mac's Dreams was released in 1977 and charted again in 2020 because a man on a skateboard was having a good day. The timestamp on a recording is now irrelevant to its potential reach. Instead of sorting discovery by date, we sort it by resonance. Artists used to have to make it immediately or not at all. They get to make something that compounds forever. Your catalog is a 401k that works while you sleep.
Also, you built a middle class. For most of recorded history, the industry was a lottery. Superstar or starving, no in between. That's changed. Platforms like Patreon, Bandcamp, Substack have quietly built the conditions for a musical middle class. You don't have to reach 100 million streams and build a six-figure career. You get to find your 5,000 people, the ones who genuinely care, who will pay for what you make and will show up and build something lasting from a foundation alone.
He says the math has shifted. Depth of fan relationship now outperforms width of audience reach. An artist with 5,000 true fans paying $20 a year is running a real, sustainable business. That model didn't exist 15 years ago. It does now, and it is now one of the most quietly radical developments in the history of the industry.
Next one, you made sync a career, not a compromise. We used to call it selling out, putting a song in a commercial, licensing it to a brand, letting it play under a montage in a Netflix show. These were acts of creative surrender, admissions that the music hadn't made it on its own terms. Not anymore.
He says that framing is gone, and good riddance. Artists used to have to choose between integrity and income. They get to monetize their art across every medium now, and the mediums are multiplying. Every streaming platform is producing original content. Every major video game has a full score. Every brand with a budget is making video that needs music underneath it. All of it needs a heartbeat. The sync market is no longer a side door into the industry. It is one of the most viable primary revenue streams available to an independent creator. And it is only getting larger.
Right. He goes on to write that you're bigger than you've ever been. Yes, Live Nation is now a monopoly. Yes, Spotify holds an uncomfortable share of the market. These are real problems and they deserve scrutiny, but they exist inside an industry generating more money than it ever has. Both things are true. The artists most vocal about Live Nation's dominance are often the same ones who would sign with them tomorrow if the offer came, and they should. They don't have to fight the monopoly from the outside forever. You get to build enough leverage to walk into the room on your own terms.
The It's Harder Than Ever metric includes every person who ever uploaded a single song to a DSP and disappeared. 20 years ago, playing guitar around a campfire was not a music career and nobody expected it to be. If you were building an audience, releasing consistently, and treating this like a business, the infrastructure available to you right now is the best it has ever been.
Right. You reminded us why we needed each other in the first place. The last 2 decades of internet fame taught us something we needed to learn. Virality is empty. Numbers that spike and vanish leave artists more burned out and less connected than before they started. The follower count that felt like everything means nothing the morning after the algorithm moves on. We are watching a correction happen in real time.
He says audiences are drifting back towards smaller rooms and local scenes. Artists who show up, who mean it, who remember your name. The most durable music careers being built right now are not being built on algorithmic spikes. They're being built on communities, email lists, Discord servers, sold out 200 cap rooms where people in the crowd know each other. We used to have to chase scale to matter. We get to build something intimate and real and call it a career.
Right. And finally, the idea that the music economy should be built on IRL connection, shared identity, and spaces where people feel seen is not a new one. In fact, it's probably the oldest idea in music. You just helped us find our way back to it. I'm expecting the comments on this piece to tell me I'm wrong. I understand the instinct. The music industry has real structural problems, and I've written about them a lot. I'm not asking you to look away from any of it. I'm asking you to hold both things at once. This is hard, and it's genuinely beautiful. The tool exists.
Joel says the audience is out there, hungry for something human, and the revenue streams are multiplying. Success has never been supposed to be easy. The artist who figured out how the world is actually shifting rather than mourning the world that used to exist are the ones who are going to build something that lasts. Yours truly, Joel Gavia. Wow, what a wonderful, wonderful piece. I got to say, I just was smiling as I was reading it.
Me too. I thought it was spot on. Cool. I agree with so much of what he was writing. And I know this was sort of a long episode, but I really wanted to cover that piece because I felt like there was so much to it. We're all so quick to criticize the music industry. But as he points out, there's a lot of silver lining to that cloud.
And a lot to celebrate. Absolutely. All right, well, as we wrap up the show, I do want to thank our sponsors. Big thanks to our good friends over at Hypebot and Bands in Town. We could not do it without them. By the way, if you want to advertise in the podcast and the newsletter, you can go over to yourmorning.coffee for more information. Music was by our friends, the Licorice Quartet. And by the way, if you enjoyed the show, just tell one friend. Jay and I would certainly appreciate that. So on behalf of my good friend Jay Gilbert, I'm Mike Etchart. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back next week on the Your Morning Coffee Podcast.
You've been listening to Your Morning Coffee, the weekly music news program for the new music business. Join Jay Gilbert and Mike Etchart next time for the digital music news you need to know.